Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it.
Nothing is impossible!
You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there.
No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to take the law, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is January 19th, 2016, and we are coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and you can listen on Spreaker.com and NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com live. But you can also listen to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud immediately after the show. You should be able to find them on Facebook as well, especially if you're one of my friends on Facebook. But I also try to share the show. Sometimes I'll forget, but share the show on the other Facebook pages that I have, Nonpartisan Liberty for All being one of them, NPLFA Radio Network, and the Government Police are all pages that I have on Facebook. So if you haven't liked those, please go and like those pages. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. So today, we have a few different things to talk about. Of course, our main topic that we're going to talk about is political correctness and free speech, and how political correctness is shutting down free speech to an extent. And I think that's the main goal of political correctness anyway, is so many things. And you probably wouldn't imagine how many, and it's not like I know neither, but I'd probably be surprised how many, and I think there's a lot, that most political rallies or protests that get any attention. Now, there's ones, because there's ones that I've went to of people that I know where, you know, there was like 10 people there that they got together. But I'm talking about ones that get attention in government media and ones that you hear about in the government media and ones that are pretty big. They have some kind of backing there. It's just, you cannot just get together with your friends and get it that big. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe you can get it to a certain point, but it's going to get hijacked once it gets big enough. And that's just unfortunately how it is, that a political party or a political operative is going to hijack your movement and try to take it over and put it in the direction that they want. And I've seen that happen, or I was going to say firsthand, but I haven't seen it firsthand, but I've heard firsthand accounts of people that were involved in certain movements and they were hijacked. And that's what happens if it gets big enough, because the government doesn't want it going certain ways. They want to be able to control it, and they want to be able to use it to their advantage. And that was the whole thing with Black Lives Matter. I guess that's still going on, even though it's not at its height where it was being talked about more. But with any of these movements that are going on, whether it's race related or not, and I only bring that up because I just mentioned Black Lives Matter, it could be anything. And they usually get hijacked because what happens is then the government can use it to their advantage, and they can guide it to their advantage. If you look at a perfect example was the Trayvon Martin case, and I know people have their own opinions about that, but it went from being a case of so-called racism. All the facts were distorted because you had a Hispanic man being called white, you had phone calls being cut up and edited. But either way, no matter how you feel about it, it went from, okay, racism to banning guns and banning self-defense laws, because it was totally hijacked by the government operatives or Democratic Party operatives, whatever you want to call them, or whoever was involved. I mean, I don't know the specifics of how they do this, but I do know, I've talked to people about this, that protested for almost professionally in a way, and how they train the protesters and tell them, oh, you do this and do that, and how they take over these protests and these movements. And it's really fucked up. No one really talks about it. That's why nothing really gets, well, there's a lot of reasons why nothing really gets done, but it's another reason why you're not going to solve things, in my opinion, through the system. And I don't believe in the system anyway, so, why would I use the system to solve things? But even if you did, to have a lot of change. But the first two things I'm going to talk about actually are some mild changes. One of them has nothing to do, though, I think, with protesting or anything like that. It's just, but one of them actually does. So I want to get to that first. And this actually had happened 4 or 5 months ago, and I didn't even know that Diet Pepsi removed aspartame from their beverage. I was thinking of, what am I going to say? Diet Pepsi removed aspartame from Diet Pepsi. PepsiCo removed aspartame from Diet Pepsi, I guess. So there's a lot of people talking about aspartame and how bad it was. And I remember in the 80s, I was a little kid, but I remember, causing cancer in rats, but supposedly it didn't cause cancer in humans. But I don't know that it makes it any better. So I had found that out, and I was like, I just found that out, I think, a couple of days ago, and I had bought a 12-pack of Diet Pepsi. Not that I'm going to continue to drink Diet Pepsi. I'm pretty much trying to get rid of Pepsi altogether, at least on a regular basis. But I just wanted to try it out. So it doesn't have aspartame, but it does have other stuff. So the aspartame was things Equal and NutraSweet, which are also available where you can just buy it as sugar, or not as sugar because it's not really sugar, but as sugar substitute, and people use it in coffee and tea and shit like that as well. So that's the one that has aspartame, and which is really bad for you. But they replaced it with another substance that, or another, I guess, bunch of substances. They replaced it with the main thing they replaced that with was Splenda, but supposedly Splenda is better for you. But this is according to InfoWars, but that it can alter insulin responses and blood sugar levels. So now I don't know where they're getting that information from. I think they do cite that somewhere, but they also there's a number of things. I guess it's chlorinated sugar. From what I understand, and I had read that in another article as well. So I read a couple articles on this, but in the other article, it didn't say anything about what it says here about reducing good gut bacteria, reducing the effectiveness of meds like cancer and heart disease medication, and releases toxins. So I don't know how much better it is, but it is definitely something. I look at it as positive because people were speaking out against aspartame and saying how bad it was. And finally, I don't know after how many years, people were speaking out about it, but Pepsi did respond by taking it out of Diet Pepsi. So I guess there is no, originally there was still Diet Pepsi with the old ingredients in it, because what I had read is some of the people didn't like the taste. I don't know, it fucking tastes the same to me. So I just wanted to try it out, and it always tastes like shit, diet anything to me. And I was for a while drinking Diet Coke, not for that long, or Diet Pepsi, whatever they had at work that was free. And I stopped because it was worse than the Pepsi with the sugar in it. And they actually do make Pepsi with real sugar now too, and especially the Mexican Pepsis, but not just those. You can buy Pepsis with real sugar. Really, you should stay away from it altogether, to be honest. And I love Pepsi. I've drank way too much of it and gained weight because of it, actually. So now, and that happened to me before, where I was just drinking way too much Pepsi and gained weight, and then I just stopped drinking Pepsi, and then, or not totally stopped, but drank like once a week or twice a week if I would get fast food or something like that, or just drink it on the weekends. And then I just lost weight and went back to my normal weight like pretty quickly. So it can definitely cause you to gain weight, but that's not the worst part of it. It's everything that's in it. I mean, there were the preservatives in it and the acid. I mean, it can fuck up your teeth really bad. And there's so many things in soda that are bad, and I basically grew up on it. I mean, I would drink it like crazy when I was a kid, which is bad. And I don't necessarily think, because I believe in the whole peaceful parenting and letting kids do what they want, whatever, I don't necessarily think that I don't blame my parents for that. I mean, I did it when I was, over 18 as well. it was just what I drank. Well, probably when I was over 18, I drank less of it and got more into alcohol. But I did drink a lot of it when I was a kid as well, and it's not good for you in, I think, under any circumstances. But this may be more of a reason or a reaction to sales, because sales have gone down. So Pepsi is showing that, hey, people are complaining about this. We're not sure. I think they still say that it's fine. It's okay for you, that they're still sticking to that, and they probably have to from a legal standpoint, or people might sue them for the years of Diet Pepsi that did have aspartame in it. But at least it's something. Now, I'm not looking at this as some big win on the side of freedom or something, and this doesn't even really relate to, I guess it does relate to freedom in the sense of a company responding to what people want, because that's really how it should work. So if people, not having the government come in and telling them they can't use it, but they did it on their own because they felt that sales were being affected and maybe more people would drink Diet Pepsi if they took out the aspartame. And that might be the case. I mean, it happened in August, and I like I said, I had just found out about it in the past couple of days. But we've seen a couple things similar to this, like Subway. There was a report about some rubber shit that they put in their bread, and they had responded and took it out. Now, who knows what they replaced that with, neither. I mean, the food, this is what is so fucked up to me, is because you have the government in general, but especially the president, you have a bunch of senators, you have all these legislators out there that are they go after things that the percentage of people that are killed each year by them are not even close to things like cancer or heart disease and things like that. So they don't care. And I don't think, based on my views, that they should be going after anything, because I don't believe in government. But if you're going to go after something, if you look at heart disease and cancer, I mean, that's like 1 million people a year right there that die from that. Obama had come out, and I thought it was more, and I think it is more. I think he was wrong, but he had said 8,000 homicides from guns per year. And I know at 1 year, and I might have miscalculated because of the suicides, but I thought it was 18,000. Either way, it's still nowhere near the combination of heart disease and cancer. So if you're going to go after shit, you know, you're going to spend your time on guns when you could be going after all of these food manufacturers and these corporations. And then Obama signing the bill for the Monsanto bill, which basically made them immune from prosecution. I think really what it did, not immune from prosecution, but I think from what I understood, it said, and this is a couple years ago, that if somebody has gotten sick from their food, that, or a number of people, they can't stop them from producing it. They have to go through a whole big, they can't the court can't issue like an injunction that says you can no longer sell this, whatever it might be. That's kind of the way I understood it, but it protected them from losses, essentially, until I guess they could prove somehow a direct correlation between what the cause of whatever was happening to people was a direct link between whatever, Monsanto was producing and what was getting people sick or whatever. So basically Obama signed that, but he, is so adamant about going after guns. And that's where it shows to me, and that's just one small reason or one small example of it's all about an agenda. It's politicians are going to use whatever they can to get what they want. And it's not even, I think, really their agenda. I don't know if he even personally gives a fuck. Sorry, I kind of burped at the end there. But if he even personally gives a fuck, really, because he's not going to get shot, most likely. I mean, he has a Secret Service and all that. I mean, it would be pretty hard. So most likely, he's fine. His kids have security. His wife has security. So it's very unlikely that they're going to get hurt in any way. So what the fuck does he care? Does he really care about all these kids and the crying that he did? And it's not just him. It's the presidents before him. It will be the presidents after him. It's all the legislators. So I don't even mean to just pick on one specific politician, because 99% of them are the same. You may find, one or two in there, maybe if you're lucky, that are actually real or trying to do something. But even a lot of those get corrupted too. Once they get to a certain level, the power goes to their head. And that's the whole problem with having people have power over you. And I talk about this all the time. You cannot have that. You cannot have people that have power over you like that. It just doesn't work. So I was kind of happy when I saw this. When I look at the Splenda and it seeming to not be all that great neither. It's still, from what I read in other articles as well, is it's better. It might still be pretty bad, but it's better, and it shows they're trying to do something now. How are they trying to do? Why are they trying to do something? Well, that might just be because of the bottom line and the financial aspect of it, but it doesn't matter. It shows that people actually caused a change, and you rarely see that anymore. And if you do see that, it's a small change. That's why to me, it's not worth it. It's not worth going through. This is a little different because it doesn't involve government. So this I would maybe look at a little differently than I would look at things involving government, because this is just Pepsi saying, okay, we're listening to the people, and we're going to change this and take this aspartame out of Pepsi. But you see a small change because of things that people have done, but it is a change that has nothing to do with the government. So you can't say, well, look, people can change things government-wise. I think maybe you got a better chance of changing things through ways like this. where maybe you can change what a company does, but changing what the government does, I think, is a lot harder than even a big corporation like Pepsi. So, and again, I think the main reason was because of their bottom line, but that really doesn't matter because people, showed them, hey, then we're not going to buy it then, and we want this change, and they had made that change. So one of the other stories I want to talk about, and this really has nothing to do with anybody causing a change or anything like that, but I thought it was something that was important, and I also wanted to talk about it because I see a negative side to it, like everything else, that this could be used, the technology in the future, who knows how it could be used. And it's also because I read another article that's not related to this one, but I'll mention why the other article is kind of scary. But because of stem cell research, with which douchebags like President Bush banned, that was one good thing, I guess, that Obama did, is like they have any right to stop this research. Now, this all happened in England, but they're essentially, I don't know if I'd say curing MS, but they talk about a woman who had just had a baby. She was in a wheelchair. MS is a degenerate disease where you just keep getting worse. And a woman who was in a wheelchair, and I don't know enough about stem cells, but I guess they put in new stem cells, and within days she was able to walk, from going from a wheelchair to walking. And that's a huge thing. And I had always thought about, the people that get paralyzed from, say, the neck down and cannot walk anymore, or their life is, if I was paralyzed from the neck down, what's the point of being alive, in my opinion? Now, I know there's people that think differently, but they had essentially cured MS. And with things like this, I mean, these are the same things that lead to being able to repair the spine, and taking people that can't walk, that were injured, not just people that have MS, but people that have been injured as well. And I don't know if they've actually done that yet, but I think it's the same idea of developing these stem cells to curing certain things. They're even talking about curing blindness. And of course, all other countries are way ahead of the U.S. because it was banned for a while because of, I guess it was only certain stem cells. It says in this that they used adult stem cells. I don't get what the whole issue was. I think they were using stem cells from embryos. I mean, really? And in this, they use that as well. And what the fuck is so they use the embryonic stem cells. They are not babies, they are not nothing, they are donated, and they could take somebody who possibly is paralyzed and give them a life. I mean, that's a huge thing. The reason I was saying about, or talking about, this can be used for negative things, not necessarily this per se, but all of this technology in general, where I also read an article where they're trying to transplant a head, and I think they did one in China. And that's where a lot of the things that doctors are doing. Think about when they get to a point where it's easy to transplant a head or body, whatever, a body to a head to a body, and that they're able to, or even, you know, like you'd see in movies or something, that they're able to switch brains or something, and the ramifications of that. That's the type of stuff that can get scary, because if you have somebody, whatever, that's I really don't want to use government, but let's just use the president as an example, or a senator, and somehow somebody, you know, invaded their body or switched brains or something like that. And I know we're talking, well, actually we're not. That's the whole thing. Like I was going to say, we're talking, you know, way out there, but we're really not. I mean, a lot of this technology is here. So you always have a positive and negative side to technology, and there's no way to stop it. It's going to happen. So you have to do what you can to, I guess, minimize the negative uses of that technology. But looking at, I think, what they've been able to do with stem cells, I don't know that I see any downsides that I'm aware of. But what do I know? I don't know a lot about stem cells and how they replace the cells and all that. It's because I know it's something where if somebody's paralyzed, it's not sending signals to the brain or from the brain. So there's something where they replace those cells or something so they can move their whatever parts they can't move, like their legs or arms or whatnot. But once that gets to a point where it's just a routine thing, I mean, that is going to change so much. Where somebody gets in a car accident and they're paralyzed, they go to, you know, they bring them into the hospital, they have an operation, and they're, you know, I'm sure would be some recover time, but they're fine after, you know, whatever, a couple weeks, and they're able to walk, and they have a life instead of being confined to a wheelchair forever. So the things that they're able to do and that they're developing are very positive things. But at the same time, when you have government essentially at the top of this thing, kind of controlling or having access to all these kinds of technologies, that's when you worry about it, because who knows what they're going to do with it. And I sincerely believe that even something like stem cells, I'm sure there's negative things that they could do with them as well. But it would be great to see just a routine operation of somebody, you know, that's paralyzed and gets out of a car, you know, has a car accident, is brought to the hospital, and they're never really paralyzed, because by the time they would have been, you know, they've had an operation, they replaced their stem cells, and, you know, in a month or a couple weeks or whatever the recover time, you know, they're walking around and they never even go through that. Or blind people restoring their sight, or deaf people restoring their hearing. All these things that people shouldn't have to live with, being able to cure that, and that's a huge thing. So I wanted to mention that, because I had seen that article that they're already essentially curing MS in the UK. So that's a great start, and that's all from stem cells, and it's people that have gotten to the point from multiple sclerosis that they were paralyzed. So I think that's a great thing. So I'm going to take a quick break, and I have a couple more articles that actually relates to our main topic for tonight. So we'll get into those when we come back. There's a report from Rasmussen that 50%, and this is today, 50% say race relations in America are getting worse, which I don't know. We'll talk about that when we come back, because I think that's all. I watched Mississippi Burning yesterday, which is a great movie, and it's based on a true story of 3 civil rights workers that were murdered in Mississippi, and then the FBI came in and whatever. It's really pro-government, which bothers me, but besides that, it's a great movie. Gene Hackman did a great job, William Dafoe. But when you watch it, and you look at how things were 60 years ago, and you have people acting like we're just as bad right now, it is insane to me. Yes, the definition of racism is totally different now than what it was. I mean, you had people being killed, you had people being beaten just for no reason, just for being black. And there's a total political agenda going on right now. And if anybody had listened to the show that I did when I talked about how I grew up, and that I was heavy into hip hop culture, and I basically at school we had I talked about this on the show. We had one like black table at lunch, or like most of the black kids sat, and I was like the only white kid there, and I got all this shit from the white kids, and they called me, wannabe nigga and stuff like that. And I got some shit from some black people, but more from the white kids. So I'm not somebody who looks at things like someone who hadn't experienced things like that would look at things. So I'm just honest, and I'm not going to sit there and lie about the reality of things just to show, oh, look, I'm taking people's sides, because I don't look at myself as anything. I mean, I'm a human, and that's, I don't identify really with any race. I don't feel like I'm part, and when I say that, I don't mean like, I know what my race is, but it doesn't, there's no attachment there. There's no, it'd be different maybe if I grew up with immigrant parents or something, and then it would be not the race per se, but you'd be connected to like a country or something like that. But no, I don't look at things like that. So, but I can't sit there and see the bullshit that goes on sometimes and then just say, well, yeah, it's okay, and take the side of, just take one side just because. No, I'm going to look at things for what they are, and objectively, based on my experiences, and also based on the facts, and tell things how they are. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and that's what I've been doing since I've been on the show. So, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, and I'll play some clips during the break regarding political correctness. But when we come back, we will talk all about political correctness and these two articles I have regarding race, which feeds into political correctness as well. So we'll be right back after this. Nonpartisan Liberty for All. Check us out at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, where you can listen to the show live, and also Spreaker.com, where you can also listen to the show live. So we'll be right back after this. nonpartisanlibertyforall.com.
In an earlier book, Brain Droppings, I wrote some things about politically correct language, but I left out a few areas. I neglected 3 important groups of people who have had this awkward, dishonest language inflicted on them by liberals. I omitted those who are crippled, ugly, or stupid. And so, to address these earlier omissions, I'd like to make a brief return visit to that playground of guilty white liberals, political correctness. Political correctness is America's newest form of intolerance, and it's especially pernicious because it comes disguised as tolerance. It presents itself as fairness, yet attempts to restrict and control people's language with strict codes and rigid rules. I'm not sure that's the way to fight discrimination. I'm not sure silencing people or forcing them to alter their speech is the best method for solving problems that go much deeper than speech. Therefore, those among you who are more politically sensitive than the rest of us may wish to take a moment here to tighten up those sphincter muscles, because I'm going to inject a little realism into the dream world of politically correct speech, especially the words we use to describe one another. Perhaps you've noticed that when the politically correct liberal rule makers decide to rename a group of humans they view as victims, they begin by imparting a sense of shame to the group's existing name. And so somewhere over the years, the word cripple has been discarded. No one mentions cripples anymore. That's because in yet another stunning attempt to stand reality on its head, cripples have been assigned a new designation, the physically challenged. The use of physically challenged is an obvious attempt to make people feel better. The idea being, as long as we can't cure these people, let's give their condition a more positive name and maybe it'll distract everyone. It's verbal sleight of hand. The same is true of the ungainly phrase, differently abled. I believe that if a person is going to insist on using tortured language, such as differently abled, then he should be forced to use it to describe everyone. We're all differently abled. You can do things I can't do. I can do things you can't do. Barry Bonds can't play the cello. Yo-Yo Ma can't hit the curveball. They're differently abled. It should be explained to liberals, patiently, that crippled people don't require some heroic designation. It's a perfectly honorable condition. It appears in the Bible. Jesus healed the cripples. He didn't engage in rehabilitative strategies to improve the conditions of the physically disadvantaged. Can't these liberals hear how unattractive this language is, how poorly it sits on the ear? Personally, I prefer plain, descriptive language. For instance, and this is a suggestion that will bother some people, but I'm serious about it. Why don't we just call handicapped people defective? You know? We don't mind talking about birth defects. We don't flinch from that. We say Gunther has a birth defect. Isn't that a concession to the fact that people can be defective? Then what would be wrong with calling those people the physically defective? At what point in life does a person with a birth defect become a person who is differently abled? And why does it happen? I'm confused. Then there are those who don't quite measure up to society's accepted standards of physical attractiveness. The worst of that group are called ugly, or at least they used to be. The PC lingo cops have been working on this, too. And to demonstrate how far all this politically correct, evasive language has gone, some psychologists are actually now referring to ugly people as those with severe appearance deficits. Okay? Severe appearance deficits. So tell me, psychologist, how well does that sort of language qualify for being in denial? These allegedly well-intentioned people have strayed so far from reality that it will not be a surprise for me to someday hear a rape victim referred to as an unwilling sperm recipient. Back to ugly. Regarding people's appearance, the political language police already have in place one comically distorted term, lookism. They say that when you judge a person, or rather size them up, wouldn't want to judge someone, that would be judgmental. If you take their looks into account, you're guilty of lookism. You're a lookist, and those valiant people who fight lookism, many of them unattractive themselves, tell us that one problem is that in our society, those who get to be called beautiful and those who are called ugly are determined by standards arbitrarily set by us. Somehow there's some fault attached to the idea that we, the people, are the ones who set the standards of beauty. Well, we're the ones who have to look at one another. So why shouldn't we be the ones who set the standards? I'm confused. I would say the whole thing was stupid, but that's my next topic, and it would sound like a cheap transition. So, stupid. It's important to face one thing about stupidity. We can't get away from it. It's all around us. It doesn't take a team of professional investigators to discover that there are stupid people in the world. Their presence and its effects speaks for itself. But where do these stupid people come from? Well, they come from American schools. But while they're attending these schools, they're never identified as stupid. That comes later, when they grow up. When they're kids, you can't call them stupid, which may be contributing to the problem. Unfortunately, kids, stupid or otherwise, come under a sort of protective umbrella we've established that prevents them from being exposed to the real world until at 18 their parents spring them on the rest of us, full grown. There are stupid kids. And I do wish to be careful how I negotiate the minefield of the learning disabled and the developmentally disadvantaged. In other words, those with special needs. All of these being more examples of this tiresome and ridiculous language. I just want to talk about kids who are stupid, not the ones with dings. One of the terms now used to describe these stupid kids is minimally exceptional. Can you handle that? Minimally exceptional. Whatever happened to the old reliable explanation? The boy is slow. Was that so bad? Really? The boy is slow. Some of the other children are quick. They think quickly. Not this boy. He's slow. It seems humane enough to me, but no. He's minimally exceptional. How would you like to be told that about your child? He's minimally exceptional. Oh, thank God for that. We thought he was just kind of, I don't know, slow. But minimally exceptional, wow. Wait till I tell our friends. Political correctness cripples discourse, creates ugly language, and is generally stupid. I haven't quite finished this section. I'm sure I needn't remind you PC people that the opera isn't concluded until the full-figured woman offers her vocal rendering. I know, I really had to strain to get that in. I'm thoroughly ashamed. But before I leave this section, I wanted to make the point that on a practical level, this language renders completely useless at least one perfectly good expression. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king becomes, in the kingdom of the visually impaired, the partially sighted person is fully empowered. Sad, isn't it?
You are listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with your host, Dave Bourne. Call in at 702-470-7664 or Skype in, username Nonpartisan Liberty for All.
And we are back, and if you didn't get those numbers, 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. Or if you'd like to Skype in, Nonpartisan Liberty for all one word is the contact name. Just send a contact request. That's not the contact name. That's the my Skype name and send a contact request. Let me know your name, where you're calling from, and what you want to talk about. I haven't had anybody call in a long fucking time, so I get more archive listeners than live listeners, and it seems like when I get live listeners, none of them want to call in. So if you have something to say, don't be nervous. Just call in and say it. Fuck. So, and if you disagree, that's fine. If you agree, that's fine. Just, don't call me and start yelling at me, because I'll fucking hang up on you. Because if you want to call for a conversation and you disagree, that's fine. But don't call to fucking start screaming at me, because that ain't gonna work. So anyway, before I went to break, I was talking about there's 2 articles that I have that I want to talk about. And a lot of people are scared to talk about this shit. Now you have, and I didn't want to fucking talk about him because I just don't. I don't want to acknowledge that he exists. And really, he's. I don't even have words to explain this motherfucker, and I won't say his name because I'll try not to anyway. But there's a difference between telling it like it is. So like this person, when they start to talk about something, I'll agree with them to an extent. When they first start talking about it and they're not, being discriminatory and talking about basically like they're almost like a white power person, a white power conservative. And they had made a fucking remark that really pissed me off. And the only reason I occasionally listen to them, I actually listen to them because of this show, because of political correctness, and they're not politically correct at all. So I thought, let me listen to them, and it might get me some good information from my show. Now, I don't know that I hate them or anything like that. I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But anyway, they had said something today that really pissed me off, because they had mentioned, my fiance is Mexican, and something about, and I don't know if they were joking or not, and I don't think they were, because basically the shit that they're fucking been talking it's like you're listening to a Nazi broadcast, and it's really scary that they even have the amount of people that listen to them, which it's not huge. I mean, it's maybe 500 to 1,000 at the most, which, I mean, that's really good. I mean, that's a lot better than me. But I mean, on like YouTube, you got people that get, millions of listeners, or even, 10,000 or something like that. But about, keeping the white race pure or some bullshit like that. And I'm just like, and I've dated every race there is. And basically for me, it's whoever I fall in love with, and it doesn't matter what race they are. If we have kids, we have kids. And I'm only saying that because I'm not sure about having kids in general. But right now my fiance wants to have kids. Not right now, like this minute, but, at some point. So I don't care what race my kids are. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as I'm with somebody who I'm in love with. But it was like, the way it was said was like, and I should have went and got the clip, was like, oh yeah, you have to go and blend in and make sure that there's no white race anymore, that everything's mixed. But what about, first of all, that's a hypocritical statement anyway, because what about the other races being pure, like my fiance is 100% Mexican. She might be part Native American or something, but she's 100% Mexican. But I mean, that's like mixed in. When I say Native American, I mean, if Mexicans are all a mixture of Spanish, European, Native Americans, and whatever. So, yeah, you know, from that standpoint, she's 100% Mexican. So what about her having white in there and diluting the pure Mexican, or somebody black diluting the black race? So what would it matter? I'm not saying people should do this on purpose, but what the fuck does it matter if, you know, everybody, and it is this way to an extent. And I don't know, you know, I've never had a DNA test, but I could have other stuff in me that I don't know of. I mean, my father was pretty dark. He was Jewish, but people mistaken him for Hispanic before. And I don't know. There could be, you know, but I don't really give a fuck. That's the whole thing, is I'm not caught up on race. But he just really pissed me off. But this motherfucker, man, is just, I don't even have words, really. I shouldn't have even brought it up, because I don't really have anything positive or any positive words to express. And the people that listen, that actually buy into this shit and give money to this motherfucker, because obviously he used to be begging for money. He would sit and beg, like, you should pay me money if you listen to my show. You owe me money. And now he has all this money because he's talking about all this shit that he's fucking buying. So you motherfuckers that are actually giving him money should be fucking disgusted. Besides the point that he's fucking screaming on the whole show. He reminds me of Mark Levin to an extent, except about 10 times, well, probably more than that, 50 times as racist. But as much as I believe the racism part, he has some initial points and then he like derails off the tracks totally. So, and that's where I'm talking about, being honest about things. And if I really thought the type of bullshit that he thought, I'd go out and say it. But I think he's fucking out of his fucking mind. But I see the initial points until it gets derailed. Like when he's calm and talks about things rationally, which isn't too often. It used to be all the time, and that's when I actually liked him, because he talked about things rationally and didn't, go around calling every black person a nigga and, whatever, like white people are so fucking great. But anyway, not that there's anything wrong with white people neither. I mean, it all depends on the person, but there are some things that, or some facts that are disturbing or are more, like I said, hijacked by the government, and it's a lot of bullshit, and it's a lot of political bullshit, and I don't think people realize they're being used. So this first article is a Rasmussen poll that says 50% say race relations in America are getting worse. I don't know how accurate these polls are. Supposedly, everybody just believes them. They interview like 1,000 people, and somehow they get this diversified amount. So I don't know. People just accept them. And that would be something to really look into, to challenge the validity of polls, because there's so many polls. And okay, voting is one thing. A lot of times they do like exit polling. You know, they're asking people when they leave who they voted for, or they're asking people now who they would vote for. But it's still only a fraction. So I don't know. And then you have something like this, where will people be honest? Where people be, you know, I think if that's true, then it's ridiculous. And I think what's behind this, to be honest, I think that people are being manipulated by the government, by political operatives into a lot of this shit. And the other part of it is, I think that the majority of, like, for example, if you want to take Missouri and what happened there, and I think the majority of people that were protesting, not the people that were lighting up fucking buildings like idiots, which was a small percentage, that the majority of people protesting knew it was about the police. Now, I don't think that they also thought about, you know, a racist element as well, but they realized, look, the police have too much power. This is about the police. The police are the problem. And then the whole thing got twisted, and on the government media, they totally turned it into race. They interviewed the people who thought it was about race. They helped to influence a bunch of people as well. And then as you have those people that are influenced, which is a small, the other thing people don't understand, it's a small fucking percentage. Look at this shit for a minute. If you look at, black people are 13% of the population, first of all. But even if you look at, say, 20% of black people agree with something, that's still 80% that don't. And that's a lot of fucking people, man. There are, you know, the majority, at least in what I see, and based on what I've looked at, the majority of black people do not live in majority black neighborhoods. They live in mixed neighborhoods just like everybody else. It's like Las Vegas, you have an area that is all black, and you have an area that is mostly Hispanic. And when I say all black, I mean it's not 100%, but it's majority black, and you have an area that's majority Hispanic, and you have areas that are majority white. But most of Las Vegas, at least from what I see, and I think the population, black population, is only like 15 or 20% of all of Las Vegas. So maybe that's because, you know, in Summerlin, which is supposed to be the rich place or whatever, maybe it's there's a lot of white people there or something. Not to say that no black people have any money, but that the wealthy black people don't move to Summerlin because I wouldn't want to live there. Not that that means anything, but I'm just trying to make a point that most of, I think, Las Vegas is mixed. You know, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. I see all types of races. I see black people all the time. I see white people. I see Asian people. I see Hispanic people. So I actually see a lot of black people, you know, And I probably see as many black people as I see white people, to be honest. And it's a good neighborhood. It's not, we're still in a city, but I don't believe, people say the black community. And I think that's one. And where does that come from? Again, government media. And when you say the black community, and I'll take it even a step further. I won't even say talk about black people. I'll say Hispanic people, because my fiance is Mexican. And they'll talk about the Hispanic community and the Hispanic vote and all of this bullshit. And so is she part of the Hispanic community because she lives in a community that is mixed? I mean, our direct next door neighbors are black on one side, the other side they're white. There are, I know across the street, some black neighbors. I see black, Hispanic, and white people on the street. This is just a street too. I mean, never mind just the whole neighborhood. So, and I see it. The reason where I see it the most and how I come to that conclusion is the grocery store. Because when I go to the grocery store is when I see a whole mix of people. Now, I believe where I live, the majority is white, but I mean, the country, the majority is white too. But so is she now part of the Hispanic community because she happens to be Mexican? And she's not Mexican from Mexico. She's American of Mexican descent. So, or however you want to put that. I mean, she's like third generation born in America. So what they do really is a disservice, government media talking about the Hispanic community and the Hispanic vote. And unless you're talking about a part of Las Vegas that the majority of people that live there are Hispanic, and there is parts of Las Vegas that the majority of the people that live there are Hispanic. Hispanic is there are a lot of Hispanic people in the Las Vegas area, obviously, because we're not that far from Mexico. So there's a lot of Mexicans in Las Vegas. But this whole fucking bullshit of how they want to separate and divide people. And that's what I think the biggest thing is here. And this will flow into political correctness. So, and free speech as well. So please don't, think that I'm going to get totally off topic here. But because that's even political correctness as well. I think it's politically incorrect, but I just think it's wrong to say the Hispanic community and how Hispanic people vote, and you have to appeal to Hispanic people. So to appeal to Hispanic people that may have been here for generations, if you go back probably a couple hundred years, well, maybe 100 years, or maybe a little less than that, when her grandparents came. Actually, I think her grandparents were even born here. So maybe her great-grandparents, most of her grandparents were born here, I think, except one. So her great-grandparents, it wasn't as hard to get into the country, so I'm sure they didn't have any problem getting in. So what about all the Mexicans that have been here for years and years? Do you think that, and I don't believe in closed borders anyway. I believe, and my rationale is, I don't think you need permission from the government to go where you want to fucking go. And it's pretty simple. And I used to kind of feel differently on that. But the other thing is, actually not really, because I remember saying years ago that I thought the fact that it was harder for Mexicans to get into the country was because of racism. And not the racism that people dislike Mexicans, but, and then people have even said this on Fox News. Bill O'Reilly said something like this because they don't want the country to turn into majority Hispanic or majority mixed Hispanic and whatever. I don't really give a fuck what the country is as long as they support freedom and true freedom and liberty. Besides that, I could care less. And Hispanic girls are beautiful anyway, and I shouldn't really say that. Well, my fiance is Hispanic, but you know, I said girls. So, you know, anyway, not everyone, of course, just like not every person is attractive, but getting back to my whole point here is government media tries to separate people, and that's part of their, you know, political correctness bullshit as well. And they try to divide people. So they have the black community, the black vote, the Hispanic community, the Hispanic vote. So again, when they're talking about the Hispanic vote, do they include my fiance in there? Is that what they're talking about when they talk about the Hispanic community? Because she's the same way. I mean, she's with me, and I'm, I guess, ethnically white, even though I'm half Jewish, and my father, like I said, was like a dark-skinned Jew. I mean, he wasn't like dark, but I mean, he was like tan. And they, you know, she has friends that are Hispanic, Mexican. She has friends that are not, that are other races. And so how do you look and say, well, she's part of the Hispanic community? Now, again, I can understand if you're talking about an actual community, meaning, okay, this area of town is 80% Mexican, and you want to refer to the Hispanic community within Las Vegas. But plenty of Hispanic people, probably more, but I don't know when it comes to, because there's a big Hispanic population, but it is probably more lives in mixed areas. So, and then it's, and this is, you know, I don't know why they're not questioned government media on things like this, because they're the ones being racist when they're assuming that every Hispanic person has the same fucking ideas, that they all want not illegal immigration, but, you know, immigration reform, or they all want whatever, I don't know. And they do the same thing with black people. And there are plenty of black people that don't live in majority black neighborhoods, that and I think, as I have said, that I think the majority of black people in Las Vegas don't live in a neighborhood where the majority of people are black. They live more in a mixed, you know, where, yeah, there's black people, there's white people. And how, you know, so they're part of the quote unquote black community. And I've mentioned this before as well, and I'm kind of getting a little off topic. So I after this, I'll get back to the article. But to me, there's unfair pressure, especially on black people, not as much Hispanic people, but that you somehow, that isn't on white people, that if you're black, that means you somehow owe something to other black people, that, give back to the community? What if you didn't even fucking come from a black community? You, again, came from a mixed area. So you're supposed to owe something to the black community in the city that you came from. Now, personally, I don't think you owe anything to anybody, no matter who you are. Maybe specific people that helped you, but I don't think you just owe things to random people. But people will get called out, like celebrities and stuff like that, like, oh, you haven't done anything for the black community. Well, what responsibility do you have to do anything for anybody, really? Like I said, except for, maybe family or people that helped you out. And I think that's totally unfair as well. And you had, I played this clip before, you had the guy from Serious Progressive. I don't know what they're calling themselves now. They kept changing the name. And I can't think of his fucking name right now. And he's a reverend and he's a fucking douchebag. And he's fucking ignorant because he talks sometimes about, like, I agreed with him that, the jails are filled and that, they're filling jails with a lot of black people as well. And they're filling them with white people too, don't get me wrong, but that they need to do something about the prison industrial complex. But this guy, essentially, the bullshit that he puts out there, that he essentially just blindly supports the government now because of Obama to an extent, and fails to realize that the government are the ones that are the most oppressive. And they're the ones. And Ron Paul, there was a quote in one of these articles from Ron Paul that was even saying that. And I've seen it firsthand, being in jail for a couple of days waiting to get bailed out. And the majority of people in there were young black kids. And when I say kids, I mean in their 20s, 18, 19, 20. It was just disgusting for stupid shit. And they get targeted because, one, I think that police automatically think if you're black, you're a criminal. And two, they know that, well, they don't know, but they think that every black person doesn't know, doesn't have the money to bail themselves out, or doesn't know the law or whatever. And in general, young people don't know all this shit because they never get taught it. So they get screwed over. The young people in general that get arrested because they don't teach you this shit in school. But I guess going back to my point, because I'm kind of rambling on here, in this report saying that 50% say race relations in America is getting worse, I don't see it. Now, if you turn on the TV, and that's where they're going to see it, is if you're talking to people that watch government media, then they're probably going to say that, because that's how it's being presented, is yes, race relations are getting worse and all of this shit. And I've seen, nothing too bad, but I've seen racism firsthand. But again, it wasn't the racism in Mississippi burning neither. It was, name calling, and most of it was behind people's backs. And people have to realize that, especially these young kids that haven't experienced the type of racism, probably most of them real racism. I mean, somebody that, is racist in their mind or whatever, it can't really do anything. I mean, they don't have any power to do shit. So this whole thing about that to me is meaningless. Plus, they have the freedom to, if they want to be ignorant and not like somebody because of the color of their skin or whatever, you know, that's on them. You know, again, I'll judge people based on how they act. Now, I do see, but I see the same with white kids, you know, little punks that are, you know, teenage punks or in their early 20s that walk around, you know, like they think they're hard and all of this shit, and they're just ignorant. And there's white kids that are like that too. So I'm not saying that it's just black kids, and those are kids that I wouldn't want to be around, but based on their personality. And I see it in, like I said, I see it in both black and white kids. I know the people that I don't want to be around, and you know, those are the people that get into trouble or whatever. But this 50%, I think, is more government media. And some of the younger generation being brainwashed by government media and by the government, because it's like the Black Lives Matters thing turned into, that came out of police killing people. And I did a whole show about what happened in Ferguson. And basically, and I know it was more because of riots, but you know how many black people were killed by police that were in situations where you could easily present it, and 99% of people that read the story, or if there was a video, saw the video, would be on the side of the person that was killed. There were tons of them, but they didn't show any of those. There were tons of all races, actually, but they didn't show any of those. They showed you what they wanted to show you, that what furthered the government's agenda. And they showed a incident that was open to interpretation, because you had some people saying some things, you had other people saying other things. Either way, I believe that what the officer did was wrong. He's trained to deal with that stuff. And I don't know really what happened exactly, but it does sound like the officer was in the wrong, but there was a lot of, I guess, holes there, or things that we just didn't know. But there were hundreds of cases that were just blatant that the government media didn't talk about. But they talked about that one because what it did was it totally divided people, because you had the white people, a lot of white people were defending the cop, and then black people were defending Michael Brown, and it was a perfect case to get people to disagree and divide and start something up. Now, a lot of the people that were protesting, it was just a buildup, and they were more about the police. And I've seen, videos of people that went down there and stuff like that. And what came out of all this, and then there was a couple other ones that the media had showed, Some of them blatant, some of them not. Like the I can't think of his name, but the guy that was locked in the transport and ended up dead. I mean, that's pretty obvious there. But because of the Michael Brown one, then it put questions in people's minds, and it for the first big police murder for the government media to cover in at least a long time, that should not have been the one. And it's almost like it was purposely done that way to divide people and to get people to disagree and fight and get white people on the side of the police. And the main agenda there, really, I think, with the government, because you look at this, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the government wanted to nationalize the police. And you had the Black Caucus, I talked about this, write a letter to the president talking about nationalizing the police. And the whole reason why the police are doing the things they do is because the federal government's doing more training than they ever have. They're giving all these weapons, they're giving tanks, they're giving all of this. So they pretty much are nationalized. But it's the same idea of, hey, let's create a problem and then let's be the saviors. And that's what they were trying to do. And then what it would have done was, and they're not done. I mean, like I said, they're pretty much nationalized as it is. And they'll probably get there at some point, maybe after Obama. But it will give the president and the government their own army within the United States. That's what it will do. Why do you think they're arming them with all this shit? Because it's not just about the takeover of each area. It's if they were coordinated on a national level. And they can do it without technically breaking any of their laws. And they can somehow, that's how they convince the people. They trick them. They brainwash people. They trick people through government media, through politicians, through all of this shit, through Obama's crying like he really cares. So anyway, I think this 50% is a bunch of bullshit, and that the real if the poll is accurate, which I don't think it is, in a sense of that most people feel that way, because I think a lot of people have realized what the government media is. That's what media is it's government media. All of the news stations, whether it's Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. It's driven by the government and their agenda, and that's what it is. And it's there to influence people and get them to push the government's agenda. I mean, I've been thinking about things and just how far gone we are. And as older people die off, now there's some negative things about older people, like racism and stuff like that. But some of the other things that when they were younger that were no big deal, that now the government is so much involved in, and this next generation is just totally brainwashed, and things, I don't see how things get any better, because the beliefs that people have as far as what government should be involved in is insane. But it goes through some of these statistics. So like it breaks it down and then says, I guess 44% a year ago, 30 as recently as January 2014, and only 20% believe race relations are getting better. I guess really that's only a comparison to, okay, are they getting better compared to last year or whatnot? I mean, but I guess it was 38% 5 years ago. 26% say race relations are staying about the same. 18% rate race relations in America today as good or excellent, unchanged from last year at this time, but down from 34% 2 years ago. And they kind of break it down into older people, and those under 40 are less likely than their elders to think those relations are getting worse, but they aren't overly optimistic. 60, you would think that older people would think they're getting better. I mean, I guess again, they're comparing them to previous years, so they're not like comparing them to like 50 years ago. But 66% of Republicans and 50% of voters not affiliated with either major party believe race relations are getting worse. Well, of course, 66% of Republicans. Among Democrats, just 37% agree, while 25% say they are getting better. I mean, what is race relations really anyway? It's almost like a lot of these things are created for more division. It really is. And as I had mentioned, Mississippi burning, I mean, you think sometimes the way people are reacting that you have that going on today. And you don't. Nothing even close to that. It's insane. And I understand. I mean, there's always going to be something there because of what this country had done with slavery, and then even after slavery. And it's very unfortunate. And but how do you handle that now? I mean, it's been 200 years, well, like 250 years, and then you have even since what was going on in the South, it's been 50, 60 years almost now. So there's got to come to a point where, most of the people, well, definitely the people that were alive during slavery are all dead, but the majority of people that were, I wouldn't say alive, but they might have been little kids, but that were involved in a lot of that stuff in the 60s are dead now as well, or at least, so old that they don't even matter. And to me, really, as I said before, the biggest issue is the government, because the average person, first of all, to say that racism doesn't exist is just, bullshit. And people want to do that. Like the person I was talking about, to get into some of the stuff, but then going to, well, yeah, racism doesn't exist. None of this stuff exists. It's all bullshit. It's all whatever. And, that's not being fair neither, because obviously there's racism that exists. Now, it is not the same racism that existed 60 years ago, and there's no fucking comparison. So, that has to be acknowledged as well. And that really, in general, I would say that it's a little harder for your average black person to make it than your average white person. However, at the same time, there are a lot of successful black people, and this whole idea that if you're black, you can't be successful is a bunch of bullshit as well. So, yes, I think it is a little harder. But, it depends on the person. I can look at my life. That's why this whole now white privilege, and you have some kind of privilege and whatever. And I mean, there are people that are privileged. There are a lot of people, and there are some black people that are privileged too. Not some. There are a lot of black people that are privileged that have successful parents as well. So to say that, there's no privileged black people is kind of a distortion of the truth. But yes, in general, it's harder for your average black person, I think, to become successful than your average white person. I think it's a little harder, but it depends on a lot of things as well. And to just say that like every white person has some privilege and that they've had it easier than every black person is a bunch of bullshit as well. So that's where something like that, I would agree with that person, but then he goes on to some other bullshit, and he wouldn't, of course, admit that, it might be a little harder for your average black person. Now, the other article I wanted to talk about, and this has to do with what's going on in colleges, and there's a lot of so-called political correctness. And I guess this is becoming the norm of political correctness at colleges. But in Oregon, in Portland, I guess, what's the name of the college? The Cascade Campus Diversity Council. I guess that's just a council. Portland Community College. To fight racism, this is the title of the article, Oregon College devotes an entire month to whiteness shaming. So they're going to shame white people during this Whiteness History Month. So you look at something like that, and what does that do, first of all? There's definitely backlash, I would think. And when I say backlash, I don't mean that something's going to happen where some violence or whatever are going to take place, but there's going to be animosity. There's going to be people that are going to be mad, that feel that, well, what the fuck did I do to anybody? And why are you, what right do you have to shame me? And I would agree with that this is a pretty fucked up thing. And again, I still go back to the government, especially, and the quote unquote examples that they're setting and the bullshit that they're peddling, along with the government media. And you have shit like this going on, that Whiteness History Month, where people are being white people are being shamed. So you have Black History Month to celebrate Black history. I don't think there should be a White History Month to celebrate white history, but it's a shaming of black people. So I want to read this quote. I guess Peter Frick, writing for the Campus Reform, explains, according to a subpage defining the term, adapted from a definition developed by the University of Calgary, whiteness does not simply refer to skin color, but to an ideology based on beliefs, values, behaviors, habits, and attitudes which result in the unequal distribution of power and privilege based on skin color. So I don't know how it doesn't refer to skin color, but okay. Not only does the concept of whiteness allow those who are socially deemed white to accrue benefits, the page asserts, but those benefits are accrued at the expense of people of color, namely in how people of color are systematically and prejudicially denied equal access to those material benefits. The ideology of whiteness, it continues, dates back to at least the 17th century, when white appeared as a legal term and the social designation determining social and political rights, a concept that eventually grew to include thousands of special privileges and protections for white citizens. Now, definitely, and I can't speak to that, but the 17th century, well, I guess that would be the 1600s, but in this country, yeah, there were rights that white people had that black people didn't, and there's no question. But it seems like instead of coming together, and again, I still put a lot of this on the government and government media, because this is exactly what they want, is to divide people. And by dividing people, they're also able to push their agenda of more control, because they're saying that, you know, if this isn't fair and we need to implement this law and this law and this law to make sure that people are treated the same and things like that, that's when you get into, I mean, that's where things are going anyway, but we're already into some serious fucked up shit. But as far as what's happened in the past, to observe that and to teach that, I think that is fine. But to shame people that had nothing to do with, I mean, I'm sure some of these people might be racist, but there's the other thing of the word racist is thrown around like, I can't believe how it's thrown around now. I mean, it's crazy, and this is just bullshit. It really is. And it's not, again, because, I mean, I could care less about the races and what I mean is identifying with a race and feeling bad for the white kids or anything like that. But I look at things as you're dividing people. And this is the quote from Ron Paul. True racism in this country is the judicial system. The percentage of people, and I totally agree with them, and including the police, that's where, you know, and the government to an extent used to definitely be. The percentage of people who use drugs are about the same with blacks and whites, and yet the blacks are arrested way disproportionately. They prosecute and imprison way disproportionately, and I believe that's totally true. They get the death penalty way disproportionately. How many times have you seen a rich white person get the electric chair or get, you know, execution? If we truly want to be concerned about racism, you ought to look at a few of those issues and look at the drug laws, which are being so unfairly enforced. And that's why the government does not want people to look at them. The judicial system does not want people to look at them as the ones that are the racists. They want people to fight amongst each other, even though you're talking about things that have happened a long time ago, nobody in college is responsible for any of those things. And where these things are even coming from, I don't know. And it seems to be getting ridiculous. And again, I go back to the media, but it really is getting ridiculous. And I think more than the media, again, because they're just taking direction from the government. It is the government. It's the government who wants to divide people. They don't want black people to be anti-government, to be against the judicial system and against a lot of these things, even though I think the majority are, because they realize what goes on. Now, they're not going to present that on the news, but that I think is what really I think people are too smart. The majority of people. Now, you have a certain percentage of people in general that are just fucking stupid, black and white. But I really believe that the majority of black people don't fall for this bullshit. They know what's going on with the fucking government and with the judicial system and the people that they're talking to and interviewing, and at all these colleges, what they're pushing is bullshit. And really, that's where people should be uniting against the government, not against each other. And it's sad. And that's really, you know, I don't want to see anybody shamed, and it's not necessarily bothering me. Like, okay, they're going to shame people. If they're going to stay at that school and deal with that shit, then they're fucking stupid. But what bothers me more than anything is the fact that people are not coming together against the real enemy. Like I said, you have some racist people. They have the right to be racist, but they're not doing anything. They don't have the power that the government has. It's the government who has that power. Some idiot, some racist fucking redneck. I mean, really, what are they going to do? Now, 60 years ago or 50 years ago, yeah, they'd get together and do a lot of bad things. That shit ain't going on anymore. And I'm not saying that it never happens. I'm sure, you have a very tiny percentage. You also have black people beating up and killing white people as well. But it's just getting crazy what is being created, because that's what this is. Because if you look at things are worse now than they were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. No. They're a lot better as far as the opportunities that black people have. So things aren't getting... It's like there's an agenda by fucking corrupt motherfuckers like Sharpton to, pull shit like this. And progressives and progressive operatives to do things like this. And then they can fight back and forth too, because then you have the Republicans and they'll fight back and forth and say, oh, look what you guys are doing. Oh, look what you guys are doing. And it will just keep going back and forth with pointless arguments and things that are really meaningless in the big scheme of things, instead of making sure that not only that people are treated fairly in the justice system, that you fucking make drugs legal, that you get rid of all these bullshit laws. So I'm going to take a quick break and get more into political correctness and what's going on at a lot of these universities. because it seems like part of political correctness is to be, I wouldn't say racist against white people, but political correctness is, if you're white, to have guilt and acknowledge white privilege now. And that's politically correct to do. So that's why I wanted to go into those articles. But we'll take a break. Remember to check us out at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. If you'd like to call in, 702-470-7664. Again, that's 702-470-7664. If you'd like to Skype in, just send a contact request to Nonpartisan Liberty for All on Skype with your name and what you want to talk about. And if you call in, if you could send a text first with your name and where you're calling from, so we can kind of expedite the, I guess, pre-screening there, I would appreciate that. So we will be right back after this. nonpartisanlibertyforall.com.
So one of the downsides of doing this Miles McInnes guy is I have to research all the liberal media, and that means I have to watch Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes and MSNBC and go on Media Matters. It's a cruel punishment I made for myself. But yesterday I'm checking out, I think it's Ed Driscoll's show, and he's got some guests on there rubbing their hands with glee that Rush Limbaugh's numbers are going down. And there's a really telling part, by the way, about the way they describe the average Rush Limbaugh listener. Check this out.
Well, look, as long as there are angry middle-aged white guys with impacted colons driving around in trucks, Rush Limbaugh will still have a demographic.
Doesn't that just say Tomes? Look at the vitriol that comes out of his mouth when he says truck, his truck, and the impacted feces. Ugh, those disgusting middle American rednecks with their diets are so gross. They've probably never even had caffeine shoved up their ass. They've never had a kale salad. They're such disgusting Luddites. Ew. And that really is what political correctness is all about. I would argue it's what the Civil War was about. It wasn't about slavery. It was about the North pushing the South around. All of this stuff just comes down to class. Even the whole fight about racism and policies is really just upper middle class scoffing down at the lower classes. Ooh, the plebes. That's what it comes down to. That's why they hate Rush, because he represents the monsters. Gary Trudeau was talking about that when he said punching down. You should only pick on Republicans and rednecks and gun nuts in Texas. Yeah, they're the worst. Even though the fucking gun nuts in Texas have the lowest crime rates in the world, okay? These evil bastards you're talking about have shaped the Western world. The Rush Limbaugh isn't the virus, you are. Now, speaking of viruses, check out this clip about the free market.
I think it's worth keeping in mind that Rush Limbaugh has gone out there repeatedly, in addition to not signaling that he understands why his particular business model is bad for business, he's gone on to attack actual media buyers. And so the participants in Flush Rush and Stop Rush are keeping this story alive and continuing to educate advertisers. But the people that are actually boycotting are the companies themselves. This is the free market in action.
All right, so it's a given then. There's two things with free speech, right? There's the people shutting something down and the government shutting something down. In Canada, the Human Rights Commission shuts companies down, shuts people down when they violate the PC laws. In America, we have total freedom, and the government, and this is true, the Supreme Court is very cool when it comes to the First Amendment, okay? For the most part, the government lets people be. Those two are not separate, okay? Free speech is about culture. All right? And we are living in a climate of fear, and that includes corporate fear, okay? There is this shrill minority that is screaming hysterically at things they find offensive and shutting places down. That's not the free market. Okay, the mafia shuts places down. That's not the free market. When we had the Salem witch trials shutting people down, that wasn't the free market, okay? That was terrorism. Right now, in the Western world, PC terrorism is shutting people down. Brendan Eich was the CEO of Mozilla. They discovered that he had funded a pro-family organization 6 years before his job. The guy was pro-gay. He said he wanted to hire gays. They fired him and said the only mistake we made was not firing him fast enough. When he donated to that organization, Hillary Clinton was anti-gay marriage. Obama was anti-gay marriage. Every politician said, I'm anti-gay marriage. That was a thing. But it became unfashionable. They found out about him and shut him down. Is that free speech? Is that the free market? And that is what's going on with Rush Limbaugh. These companies are scared, okay? They're scared of boycotts. They're scared of a tiny, shrill minority. Now, I'm obviously very biased. My company got shut down because I made transphobic remarks. And people have said to me, well, that's the free market. No. When you have these people screaming at your clients, screaming at Havas, this company that had just bought us, when these people are screaming at them, they just go, I don't want to be screamed at. Now, obviously, there's some culpability there. Corporations have to be brave and go ahead and scream at me, you losers. I don't care. But the example I always use is a crazy ex-girlfriend shows up to work with mascara running down her face and crashes through your front window and says, payback's a bitch, isn't it, Roy? That's not the free market. They have to let you go. They keep replacing the front window. Rush's numbers are going down because of lunatics screaming at him. And these lunatics are now in corporate positions, okay? These politically correct nuts are now in the boards of corporations, and they're going, that's mean, and I'm weak, and he challenges people, and I don't like that. Just like I don't like physical exercise, I don't like mental exercise. So let's shut him down, okay? That's nothing to do with the free market. He still has millions and millions of listeners. I think he's up to 4 million, all right? And MSNBC bitching about his numbers is absurd as my YouTube clip bitching about MSNBC. MSNBC lucky to get 80,000 on a show, all right? Rush Limbaugh is speaking for 4 hours, not with a Daily Show army of 15 guys writing his lines. He's speaking off the dome for 4 hours a day about what real Americans believe in, and they love it. And that might get shut down by this tiny, shrill, screaming, smug lunatics. Like this asshole, John, what's his name? Fugelsang, who sees, he's this part of this tiny minority that just hates Westerners, hates middle Americans, hates the people that made this country great. Those little losers are going to shut down what we all love. And that is a form of terrorism. We are under the tyranny of the shrill minority, and it's got nothing to do with the free market.
Promoting the ideas of true freedom and liberty, nonpartisan liberty for all radio with Dave Bourne.
And we are back. I didn't realize that whole thing was really about Rush Limbaugh. Otherwise, I wouldn't have fucking played it, because I'm not a fan of Rush Limbaugh or any conservative talk shows, nor any liberal talk shows neither, because they're all full of shit. So, but he was trying to talk about political correctness. It got lost, I think, in there, in the, all the talk about Rush Limbaugh. But, going from, where I kind of started with those, articles, really what I think about political correctness, and it's been slowly going on for who knows how many years now, that it's a way, in order to do it in a way to brainwash people and hide their true agenda, I think the U.S. government uses it as a way to ultimately eliminate free speech or move in that direction. Now, I don't know if they would be able to totally eliminate free speech, but they have been on a stop speech war, or whatever you want to call it, because they call everything a war, for a while, and they've done it with groups like Cop Block, where you had the police calling to label them a hate group, and then move towards, okay, we want to pass hate speech laws. Now, I can definitely see that coming in the future. And what political correctness does is it labels a lot of things as hate speech, when really you can't have the government or anybody else determining what's hate speech and what's not. It's one thing when you're threatening somebody's life and saying, I'm going to kill you, and you're pointing a gun at them or something along those lines. But as far as being derogatory against any group you want, now I'm not saying I agree with that, but what I am saying is that you have that right, because once you get to the government deciding what's good and bad, it's over. That's why, even though you may not like a group like, say, the Ku Klux Klan, I mean, they have, which I don't even know how, many members they have at this point. They're a fucking joke. But if they want to have a pointy head rally somewhere, that they have just as much right as somebody else who may be preaching what you would think is a positive message, because everybody has their own opinions as to what's right and wrong. I personally think all police are bad, and I have a rationale as to why I think that. Now, should I not be able to say that because, it's hate speech? Or should I not be able to speak out against the government because it's considered hate speech? So one of the things that I think people really need to be aware of is that with all these things that are going on, whether it be the police, arming up all these government agencies, arming themselves, Obama trying to ban guns and pass laws on his own, whatever it may be, this is another one of those things that kind of fits in there. And really one of the things that they were trying to do, I think, was the internet, is go after the internet and so-called hate speech on the internet. And that's still out there. That's not something that's going to go away. And along with that, just hate speech laws in general, because I think that those will go hand in hand. I mean, you've already had people arrested for posts on Facebook, and, some of them were more threat oriented, but there's people that have been arrested for so-called, hate speech, essentially. Now, I don't know that they called it that. So I think this whole political correctness that they're trying to push now, and they're starting at universities, really, which is I think the only reason they start at universities is because it's how you're gonna start it, like, elementary school. But I'm sure the teachers are doing that as well, as telling kids that, oh, that's not right to say, or things along those lines. But it's weird because you're having kids in college use free speech laws to attack free speech. Like, they'll protest something that has to do with free speech, but their protest is actually an expression of free speech and their right to that. So you can't say that your protest is right, but what they said was wrong. I mean, you can, but what's the difference? It's all subjective. So my main concern about political correctness is not just the fact that it's fucking ridiculous and it limits the amount of ways to express things, even though it might be in a negative way, it might not be. But who's deciding what's a negative word, what's not politically correct, and what is? And what's the right word you use compared to what word you not use? And who decides that, really? Like, who decides if black people are called African American or black? Some people would get offended being called African American. So it's kind of fucked up in a sense of who's deciding. Are they writing a fucking politically correct book and somebody's actually deciding what's politically correct and what's not? And really, all political correctness does, in my opinion, is move to take away free speech. And it's another political agenda. It's another way to exploit something to push a political agenda. And we see it over and over again, that things being exploited to promote a political agenda. So what will political correctness and hate speech laws, and if the government gets more involved in this, do? Well, one, it will give more control to the government. It will obviously cause for the passing of more laws, like we don't have enough already. And then leading to what I was just talking about in the hate speech laws. And I don't know what laws are on the books now, if any. And, those would have to, if there are laws limiting speech. I mean, there were in expression, like, Larry Flint got arrested for selling a Playboy in Ohio or something back in, I don't know, like the 70s or something. It was in the movie. And then Two Live Crew got arrested for performing what they called, it was like lewd or something. I mean, in the past, it's been mostly sexual stuff because, and I think that goes back to religion, where everybody being caught up on religion and caught up on sex. But I don't know if there are any hate speech laws in certain states. Now, I think that if there were, technically, that if they were brought to the Supreme Court, they should be overturned. Now, the Supreme Court, again, is just a politically biased body that really doesn't mean shit. to me, as far as just because they rule a law, the majority of them, and they rule it constitutional, I don't think that really means much. I don't think it means it's constitutional. I mean, for the purposes of how the law is going to be followed, yeah, now it's constitutional, or it's not, depending on how they rule. But I don't think that the fact that they have ruled something constitutional means anything. I really don't. So I think, as I had mentioned, there's the brainwashing people to ban certain speech. I think they're really doing this in schools and definitely universities. And maybe it's kidding universities because they went through school, government schools this way, that, well, you can't say this and you can't say that, and you had to, I'm trying to think of the specifics, but I don't know if it was the dean of the school or something at, what was the school, Yale, that had to resign over something. I thought it was over something stupid that was said, and he ended up resigning. And everything is, if you say the wrong word or the wrong thing. I mean, there's a difference between being against political correctness and being actually really racist and discriminatory. There is a difference, and I think there's a clear difference, but I don't think that clear difference is nowhere near applied. It's just getting into a ridiculous realm of everything offends somebody, and you can't say anything because no matter what you say, you're going to offend somebody. Now, there are legitimate things that I think are offensive, and that is understood, but the amount, it's like an example, calling a black person a nigga is obviously discrimination, and I understand a line being drawn there. I don't think there's a political correctness issue there. And I think that's pretty clear. But you have a lot of things that are just about, well, we have this political correctness where we don't want to offend anybody. And it's not just in words, neither. It's in the way they treat kids in schools now, where I remember hearing of they won't use red ink because it's offensive. They won't use, they give trophies to everybody to recognize participation instead of giving an actual trophy to the champions. Things like that are all part of political correctness. And political correctness really, it reminds me, and I don't know how many people have seen this movie, of Demolition Man, where you live in this society where you can't, they get fined for saying, cursing, and they are in more of it's control. It's control over your speech. It's another aspect to control. And we're getting hit by every fucking side there is. We're getting hit by government control. And this really hasn't, I guess, technically been something the government has got involved in, although a lot of these universities are government funded. So you've had a lot of the stuff go on at the universities. But that aside, I don't see, and there could actually even be legislation that I'm just not aware of, to be honest, because I know they have talked about hate speech laws. I mean, in England, they have them already. And let me play this clip. Hopefully I have it. I do. It's a quick clip. This is about free speech in universities in the United Kingdom. So we're not, I think, that far away from where they're going. So let me play this clip real quick, and I might stop it in between to comment.
Free speech in British university campuses is in danger of being silenced. A new survey shows UK educational institutions are pulling the plug on debates and societies they deem controversial. They're often going far beyond any type of legal requirement. Polly Boyker digs up the scoop.
They're supposed to be bastions of free speech, but according to new research, Britain's universities are becoming citadels of censorship instead. A survey for Spiked magazine found that 80% of the UK's colleges had restricted freedom of expression. The Sun's been banned from over 30 unis because the tabloid's traditional page 3 feature contains topless models. Sombreros and Native American outfits aren't welcome in Birmingham University. They're deemed too racist. And budding pole dancers should avoid Swansea University after the student union voted to outlaw the fitness trend on campus because of its links to the sex industry.
It's broadly an attack on any type of political affiliation that could be seen as that bit offensive, and I think that's the most troubling thing. A lot of students go to university because they want to get involved in politics, involved in kind of political contestation, whereas now students are going, they're finding that they can't form the societies that they want to, that they can't hold controversial debates.
For example, students at Oxford University didn't get to discuss abortion after a debate by a pro-life pressure group was shelved because the university's women's campaign threatened to disrupt it.
Euthanasia?
Comedian Kate Smurthwaite's stand-up show at Goldsmiths University was scrapped the day before it was meant to take place. Ironically, it was about free speech.
And suddenly it was cancelled. I would get that if we were talking about, these sort of extremists. I've heard about people, having sort of extremist fundamentalist Muslim speakers who demand that the audience be segregated by gender. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about, feminists and social justice campaigners and human rights campaigners being told, oh, well, we think that your attitude towards this is the wrong one.
Last summer, University College London's Nietzsche Club put posters around the university asking if there was too much political correctness. Well, they never got to answer that question because they were barred from holding their meetings here. The Union Council ruled that discussing Mussolini's favourite philosopher could encourage fascism. In fact, the wrong attitude could also get students into trouble with the law. The government's new counter-terrorism and security bill obliges lecturers to report students they think could be drawn towards terrorism.
I was with a colleague earlier today who was talking at an open day to potential students, and he was indicating that his students this year are inviting someone who was a member of the Islamic State group and who has since rescinded his views to come in and talk to students on his course. I would imagine that the government would now be concerned about this kind of session. So it actually precludes the ability to have a full, frank and open discussion.
Free speech university rankings appear to show that it's the fear of being offensive that drives most of the restrictions on expression at colleges. But there are those that say that that's hardly preparing young people for life in the real world.
Yeah, and the whole thing being that you're supposed to be exposed to all these ideas. And what happens is if they have a certain speaker or they have somebody controversial come there, they'll try to boycott them. They won't want them there. And the fact that it's happening at universities is scary in the sense that, again, you're talking about the supposed future of the country, I guess, because these are supposed to be the kids. I mean, I guess they're adults, but, you know, whatever. They're in their early 20s. I call them kids, but not that I'm that much older, but I'm older enough. Not that that's proper English, but they had talked about that in law school. I think Harvard Law School, they won't talk about rape laws because they don't want to offend anybody. And you had also and I definitely got to play this. It's about 10 minutes long, so I'll wait a little longer to play it. But some things that went on in college campuses here in the U.S. You had a girl who claims that her boyfriend that she was with for a long time, I guess, was rough with her during sex and slapped her or something like that. And they had determined that that's not what happened. Now, I think probably what they determined was we can't really prove anything. So what can we do about it? And to be honest, that's the right thing to do. I mean, you can't just blindly throw people in jail without evidence. So if it's her word against his, I hope it didn't happen. I hope she's lying, because I would hate for somebody like that to get away with it. But from what I heard, I mean, it doesn't sound like it wasn't like a random rape where somebody just grabbed someone or anything like that, or that it was unconsensual sex. It's just she didn't like what he was doing and wanted him to stop, which still, to me, it means that, you know, what he's doing is wrong and he should stop. But it's not as bad as somebody just randomly grabbing someone off the street and raping them. And I don't think they broke up after that. But she started carrying around a mattress all over the place. And then I believe she did some video, almost pornographic type video, showing what happened, but had some other guy playing the actual guy. So feminism is another thing that it seems that, and this is where that fucking douchebag, I start to agree with him a little, because he has some points there, but then he kind of goes off the rails, where, you know, women shouldn't be able to vote, and women should, you know, really have no rights, and that, you know, that whole thing. But essentially, I do agree with feminism out of control, and the whole thing that almost men are all evil, and this whole idea of the patriarchy causes all this bullshit. And it really, I mean, I support a woman's right to do whatever they want. I do. And if a woman wants to be in the army, if they want to be whatever they want to be, they should be held to the same standard. I think that's an issue, because you can't have, so if you have a woman on the front line and her training, she didn't have to do as much as the male, that to me is an issue. But as long as she can do whatever's required and a woman really wants to do that, I'm totally with that. I think that women should be able to do whatever they want. But this whole bullshit that women are somehow oppressed. So what I see happening, and the government's all behind it, it's a government agenda of we need to unite all minorities together and push the oppression issue and use it as a way to pass more and more laws so we can get more and more involved in people's lives. So if you look at the political correctness regarding women and feminism and say that, okay, equal women or equal pay for equal work. Now, in theory, okay, that sounds fine, but somebody might have more experience than somebody else. Somebody may, there might be other circumstances related to why they got more, they're getting more money. Now, what comes into play that is good for the government, but bad for companies, and I think bad for society as a whole, is how are they going to check on that? So, and this is why, I remember I got a promotion, I don't know, it's been like almost 4 years now, but they have to have the job description all done up. They have to have all of these things they have to meet. And that's partially why, because they have to justify the pay. And they have to be able to compare, because if it comes down to that, basically the government's going to have access to more and more records. They're going to be able to look at, okay, these people have the same title, but this person is paid more. So like I have, maybe 10 plus experience, 10 years or 10 years plus experience in what I'm doing, but somebody else may have 2, and then they have the same title, but I'm getting paid more because I have a lot more experience. Now, initially they could look at that and look at the titles and then look at the salaries and say, oh, well, this person's getting paid more than this woman, and then go through, look at all the details, go through all of my information that they really have no business in, and the company having to defend why I'm being paid more, which in reality I should be based on having more experience. Or, so it makes companies nervous, and they have to be very careful about job descriptions and job titles, and it causes more work for them as well. And so in theory, yeah, if you're doing the same job, you should get the same pay. But there's things that people don't bring up. There's the fact that there's a lot of women who have started careers, left, had babies, maybe left for 5 years and came back or something. Or that the reason, because they say overall, and they distort the truth, but overall that men are paid more than women. And obviously because overall more women stay home to take care of the kids, and more men are focusing more on the career. A lot of times the wife might get a part-time job or something, or a job to help contribute where she's more taking care of the kids. And part of that is biology, and people don't want to recognize that if you have kids, that women have kids, they have different hormones, they have the babies actually come out of them. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Now, if you don't want to have kids and you want to be a total career woman, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And you should be able to do whatever you want, and you shouldn't be discriminated against because you're a woman. As long as you can do the job And, you know, this whole thing, every place I worked at, I think I've had way more female bosses than male bosses. Now, that doesn't mean just because of my experience that women are treated fairly. I know that it always wasn't like that women had to go through a lot to get to where they're at now. But it's like the way I see things, it's like the government is trying to purposely push things backwards and use political correctness to do it. So things have obviously gotten better for, I think, everybody. And technically, I guess I'm a minority. I'm half Jewish. I don't consider myself a minority or anything. I do consider myself different, but not because I'm half Jewish. But, you know, and I don't believe in organized religion. So if it's not a race, then I guess I'm not Jewish anyway. But Muslims that fanatical, whatever, ISIS would probably still want to kill me. But anyway, the point being is it's like they're going backwards, but they're doing it to take more control, because all of these things lead to more government laws and more government control. So that's where, you know, something like saying we need to make sure that women are getting equal pay. Yeah, that sounds great in theory. How do you do that? Or we need to make sure that minorities are being paid the same. I haven't heard that come up, but or maybe I have once or twice. But, you know, same thing. It sounds great in theory to make sure, but in reality, it doesn't. One, it's none of the fucking government's business, in my opinion, what people are being paid. You know what? Somebody may be paid more because they're more friendly, not just because of the work they do. They got a better personality. They like being around them more, so they pay them more money. They may pay a girl more because she's better looking than the guy or the other girls. I don't know. And you know what? I honestly think that if you run your own business, you should be able to do whatever you want. And I believe that. Now, what happens is, because of all these regulations, you have the barrier to entry so high that it's so hard for people to start their own businesses. Because I still believe if it wasn't for that, you'd probably have 50% of people would be their own boss, and they might not even have anybody working for them. They might be somebody who just contracts with businesses and does whatever they do, especially with the internet and all the possibilities there. But I think because of all the regulations and all of these issues with the government getting involved in things, it's a lot of times it's not worth it. Now, maybe I didn't give the best example. You know, if you're an independent contractor, it's pretty easy to do. But I mean, to actually start your own business, even if it's a small business, say you want to start a small convenient type store, and maybe at some point you want your own grocery store, or you want a department store, or you're never going to be able to compete. And you're going to have to get through all of these permits and all of these things. So that doesn't directly have to do with political correctness, but just going back to the point of making sure that everybody's treated the same or everybody's treated equally, and having the government come in there does. And I believe that's why they're doing it. What they're doing is, by promoting this political correctness, they are using it. So to everybody else, they make it look like, hey, it's just to be nice to people. It's you need to be fair and not insulting. And of course, everybody's for that. Nobody wants to. Well, some people do, I guess. But in general, like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Hey, if they want me to call them whatever, you know, somebody that's black wants me to call them African American, I'll call them African American. If they want me to call them black, I'll call them black. Usually, why would I be calling them either? I would just be calling them by their name. But whatever their name is, I call them whatever they want me to call them. And same thing, you know, it's just out of respect. But this whole, you know, no one wants to hurt anybody's feelings, but being forced or pressured into, you know, oh, I can't say this and I can't. And everybody has that in them to a certain extent, even if you're not somebody who's politically correct, because it's been drummed into your fucking head, whether it's through school or government media or politicians or whatever, or people reacting a certain way and saying you shouldn't say that. You should say this now. It's getting ridiculous, but they use that. They'll use the essentially the being respectful, being nice, making sure that people are respected and called what they want to be called, even though not every person is fucking different. So I don't know how you could take a whole race of people and say that every fucking person in that race is offended. That's a bunch of bullshit anyway. But they're going to use that, and with that, not only affect free speech and move towards hate speech and hate speech laws and crimes, but they can use it for all this other stuff as well, to make sure everybody's being treated the same way, to make sure everybody's being paid the same for jobs, to get into all these companies' records that way, and to be able to control companies as well, to say, hey, we found this, you know, we could fine you. Or it's kind of the same thing with certain industries, and I think it's getting to almost all of them, where you can't possibly get into a certain industry and not break one of their laws. It almost like running for office. I think to keep up with all the stuff and campaign contributions and not make a mistake and whatever. And then it's selective enforcement. It really is. And this was brought up in one of the YouTube videos I was watching, in the movie 1984, that in the book, well, I think this came from the book, but there's a movie too, that they tried to destroy words and get rid of words and thought crimes and have the minimum amount of words. So instead of having the example that was given as good and bad, why not have ungood and get rid of bad and reduce the vocabulary to basically nothing and force people to conformity at the same time? I mean, that was obviously forcing people to conform by, you know, the barrel of a gun, by government, but it's the same thing. But they had wanted to eliminate as many words as possible. So it's like a you know, decreasing of even how you can think and what you can use to think. And you only use words that the government approves of. And essentially. Now, I'm going to play that clip of these. It's called the three of the most fucked up college campus stories of the year. It's about 10 minutes, but I want to make sure that everybody hears it. And we'll be right back after this. NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com.
The college school year that just ended was packed with seemingly endless controversies involving everything from banning the movie American Sniper to questioning Columbia University's Mattress Girl to using Title IX, a federal law designed to end gender discrimination, to investigate feminist professor Laura Kipnis at Northwestern. Robbie Suave is a staff editor who covers higher education and free speech issues at Reason.com. We sat down to talk with him about three of the most disturbing campus stories of the year and why there's reason to believe that the high tide of political correctness is actually receding.
Let's start first with the case of Emma Solkowitz at Columbia. She's better known as Mattress Girl. What was going on there, and how is the case shaken out?
Yeah, this is a case that's really brought a lot of renewed attention to this issue of sexual assault on campuses. In Emma Solkowitz's case, she accused a friend of hers, and they'd become lovers, Paul Nungesser, of assaulting her while they were having intercourse early on her sophomore year of college. And then months later, she made the accusations when she says that other friends of hers said they had also been assaulted by him. This is a very disputed incident. The only two people in the room were them. He says she made the whole thing up. And ultimately, the campus judiciary process did side with him and said that, he didn't do it. And the police, didn't go much further than looking into it and saying, there's not enough here to support the charge that he did do it.
And then she, as an art project, she started carrying a mattress around with her around campus called Carry That Weight.
Right.
And that obviously drew a lot of attention. What happened now? Because Nungesser graduated, right? As did she this year.
She both graduated. They both graduated, and she did bring her mattress with her across the stage. And interestingly, the president of Columbia, Lee Bollinger, didn't shake her hand as she crossed. I think because she'd caused so much trouble for them, including being one of the students who filed a Title IX complaint against the university. This is the law that forbids sexual discrimination and harassment on campus.
In this case, you have a sexual assault or, a claim of sexual assault, and it ends up leading to two Title IX cases, one by the woman involved, one by the man. And what is the status of Nungesser's case then against Columbia?
Yeah, so it's just pending at this point. It was filed a couple weeks ago. It argues that that the university failed to protect him from the campaign of harassment that she waged against him by, publicly identifying him by making this statement aimed at getting him kicked off campus. And he was saying that, I'm innocent of this. I was found innocent of this. And they sponsored her project as well because she received course credit for it. It was an art project on campus.
Is there a timeline for when this might play out legally?
It's hard to tell, and it's hard to tell, frankly, whether it is merited, because you could make the argument that she was engaging in
free expression,
speech and advocacy. Although the fact that she received course credit for it complicates it a little bit, and the lawsuit doesn't actually. He's not suing her. It's a complaint.
Another recent story was at a couple of colleges, including your alma mater, University of Michigan, they were going to show American Sniper. At Michigan, a Muslim student group protested. The university pulled the viewing, then put it back on. What does this tell us about the current state of free expression, and I'm not even sure if it's free expression, but of just kind of open discussion on college campuses?
Right. I think it's frightening a little bit to see the definition of what's threatening, lowered to such an extent, because the students were saying, literally, showing this movie would make us feel unsafe on campus, that this is a genocidal, anti-Muslim propaganda film, which I don't know that that's the case. But in a sense, I'm like, even if it was, isn't a university a good place to study it and maybe denounce it if it's terrible, or talk about these important things?
Argue, or teach the conflicts.
Right.
Used to be the slogan.
Yeah.
How did the students, the Muslim students, get it banned, and then what happened that it went, the university was like, no, we're going to show it anyway?
Right. They did a petition and generated a lot of media buzz, and that got it. It was a recreational campus group affiliated with the university that was going to show it. They got them to reverse that decision, and then there was some counter blowback to that. People going like, "Are you out of your mind?"
Right. And the football coach at Michigan,
Harbaugh, was very supportive of actually showing it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're being led by your football coach in the arena of free speech, something has gone wrong.
Right. So they did show. They showed Paddington as well. Was the alternative film, which is a little ironic. It's kind of based on a children's sort of thing.
A final case to talk about is the strange case of Laura Kipnis. She's a professor at Northwestern University who became the subject or the target of a Title IX complaint at Northwestern. What did she do that raised the ire of students there?
This is really an astonishing case because all she did was write an op-ed in the Chronicle of Higher Education that was about Title IX in general, and she's a liberal, a radical sort of old 60s style person who was actually writing about being more sexually open and permissive.
Right.
And the students. Supposedly liberal students didn't like it. They complained about the op-ed. They thought it was factually wrong. They protested, and they also filed a Title IX complaint against her.
And then what happened with that? Because if a Title IX complaint is lodged against somebody, then the university investigates it, and Northwestern found what?
Yeah, they, after hiring an outside law firm, that talked to her with her support person, not her lawyer, but her person she's allowed to bring, who was replaced midway through the process because he had issues, so he generated Title IX complaints against him. So it's really astonishing to see them kind of just take off. But she was cleared.
And what was she technically accused of? I mean, of creating an unsafe...
It was
a hostile place.
She was retaliating. There were a couple issues, but it was that she was retaliating against the person who was named in the Title IX complaint that she was discussing. It was retaliating against them, and that's not allowed under Title IX. And that it was creating a chilling effect for people to file Title IX complaints that she was complaining about Title IX
And
complaints.
of course, then the flip of that is that this creates a chilling effect on the speech of everybody on campus if everything you say is subject to a complaint that is then going to go through some kind of adjudication process.
Right, some time of adjudication process. And think of I keep thinking of the expense, how this must drive up the cost of college tuition, that they have to respond to every single instance of someone's stepping a toe out of line.
Now, one of the things that was interesting about Kipnis is that this is not the kind of the kind of political correctness argument from maybe 10 or 15 years ago, because you have a liberal professor, a left-wing feminist professor who's being attacked. She was talking, among other things in the Chronicle of Higher Education piece, she was talking about how students should be more sexually liberated, and she remembered fondly instances where she engaged in sex with her professors back in the day. So this was a different type of case, and it got she was highly defended by all sorts of people that normally kind of pile on the professor in this case. Why, what happened there, and what role did that play?
Yeah, well, some people, cynically said that it was, liberals are now willing to defend because it's a liberal professor who's the victim. I think that's a little too cynical. I think you are seeing a across the board kind of concern from commentators, from pundits, from other journalism outlets that there really is something wrong with the climate on campus when people, really just all they're doing is expressing opinions. There was no instance, Laura Kipnis there was no physical dispute with anyone. She really just talked about what she thought. And I think that's starting to create a movement that wants to do something about it. Unfortunately, because of the Title IX regime, because of how the Education Department has interpreted this law, there's really not much we can do, I think, until that law is kind of engaged.
Beyond the kind of Kipnis incident, there's also Jonathan Chait of New York Magazine recently wrote a basic liberal commentator, talked about PC going too far. There are other instances of this. Are we entering a phase where, the idea of kind of enforcing orthodoxy through the suppression of speech seems to be, being called into question more than it has been?
Yeah, I definitely think you see that, and you can the number of pieces like Jonathan Chait's making that argument. On the other hand, there are still a lot of people who are concerned that campuses should be more accommodating and emotionally accommodating. Right. We really need to treat kids like children. So you do see those arguments being made. But I think the stronger argument that colleges are places where you should really be troubled, you should be provoked, you should be angry, you should engage a range of views, and that's kind of a classically liberal sort of mindset. And I think that argument is being made by a lot more people with in reaction to kind of these crazy story after story.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Robbie?
You are listening to Nonpartisan Liberty for All Radio with your host, Dave Bourne.
And we are back for the last 10 minutes of the show. One of the things that they had said in that last clip about treating, it was something along the lines of treating them like kids. I mean, yeah, I call them kids, but at the same time, they are adults, and it seems like they're acting like little kids, and that they need the school to get involved in all of this shit. And I don't know how long it's been like this. When I went to college, I never lived there, so I didn't get involved in any of that shit. I was working full time my last year and a half. So I just went to school and, left and went to class and just did my thing. So I didn't experience any of whatever the fuck is going on, but it seems like it's kind of ridiculous what's going on, or not necessarily what is actually going on, but the way that they're handling some of these things and how they're reacting to them. I mean, I understand, when you're at college, and they made this point in the video, that's when, if you get politically involved and maybe at the school you have rallies for, an anti-war rally or things along those lines, that I totally understand and agree with. But it's like the kids in college today are like the high school kids years ago, or junior high kids. I mean, getting to a point where you're reporting things to the school or filing, things against people. If it's something where you think it's serious enough to call the police, then fucking call the police. I mean, if somebody feels that they were raped or something like that. Now that's a whole nother story where it's like in California, I believe they passed a law that you have to get some kind of permission for everything you do. I mean, that's getting crazy as well. But if it's an actual rape or something along those lines, then take it to police, or every campus has actual real police, just like high school does, which is another issue that I don't agree with. But but it seems like you're dealing with spoiled kids who are acting like little kids and not knowing enough about, I haven't been to college in a long time. So, and again, I never lived there. I don't know if this was the same, if this was always the same, or this is something new. Now, according to obviously the media, this seems like something new that is going on. And I even remember when President Bush spoke somewhere that they had protested that, and it seems like whether you agree with somebody or not, and they're going to come and speak at your college, and, if you don't want to go, don't go. But that he might have been the commencement speaker, actually, but I thought he just came to speak. But, and the same with Obama, did the same thing. And that's where he made I know at Ohio State, made those comments, like basically don't listen to the people that question government, which was crazy. But I don't know what's going on with kids in college today, and it's scary that this is supposedly the future. In the last 5 minutes, I just wanted to talk about guns real quick, because guns even are something that are almost considered not politically correct to talk about. And I'm saying to talk about guns like in a, whether it's a sporting thing, or you're a gun collector, or, self-defense. I'm not talking about school shootings or something like that, obviously. And I remember even when I went to school, and I went to school in Boston for my bachelor's, and I had a class, I mentioned this before, that we were to do a presentation, and I was going to do it on how the media is so anti-gun. And this is, a while ago. And what they would do, too, is in any rap song, they bleep out any word for gun. They would, even if it was a word that most people weren't familiar with. So they were even doing that back then. And she told me, the professor, not to do it because the people in the class would go crazy. So it was, even back then, it was deemed by her not politically correct to talk about guns, to say that they're looked at in a negative way, and to present the positive sides, that they save people's lives, that they're there for self-defense, as well as other reasons as well. And I just said as well like twice. But that's another thing that at college campuses, especially being more progressive, that I would think they have the same viewpoint. Now, it might depend on where the college is, but it doesn't seem to matter. It seems like colleges are being taken over by a certain ideology, and why it's colleges that we're seeing so much of this political correctness, I don't know. And I guess if you're seeing it at colleges, all these kids are going to graduate college. And I remember the Yale thing was, I think it was over the Halloween costumes, that people got offended about Halloween costumes. So it doesn't matter what you do, especially in college, I guess people are going to get offended. It's like they're looking for things to complain about and get offended about. Why don't you fucking focus on what you're there for, to graduate and do schoolwork? And again, I don't I don't think there's anything wrong with, protesting things that are going on, like the government spying and shit like that. But instead, they're sitting there fucking protesting Halloween costumes. And as far as what we can do about this, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of parents are paying for colleges. They might want to look at, what's going on and what their role in that is. But other than that, people are free. If they're paying for college, I mean, they're free to do what they want. And I bet you it's not the kids that are paying for college themselves or getting student loans that are complaining about the all of this shit. They might be complaining about how politically correct things are, but usually when you pay for something yourself, it means a lot more. It's you put in a lot more work because you're paying for it and you want to get something out of it. So I know we were all over the place tonight with this, but that's about all the time we have, and I appreciate everybody for listening and tuning in tonight. Tomorrow, Ken Shorgen will be joining us of the Daily Economist. Go to the dailyeconomist.com to read some of his articles, which we will be talking about in more detail tomorrow night. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for listening and supporting us. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, every show, immediately after the show, the live show, every archive is being posted to YouTube, and you can go to YouTube.com/user/nonpartisan liberty and get our YouTube page. Of course, all that information is on the website as well, nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. So thanks, everybody, and hopefully you'll be tuning in tomorrow.
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs a real...
There's people that think differently, but they had essentially cured MS. And with things like this, I mean, these are the same things that lead to being able to repair the spine and taking people that can't walk, that were injured, not just people that have MS, but people that have been injured as well. And I don't know if they've actually done that yet, but I think it's the same idea of developing these stem cells to curing certain things. They're even talking about curing blindness. And of course, all other countries are way ahead of the U.S. because it was banned for a while because of, well, I guess it was only certain stem cells. It says in this that they used adult stem cells. I don't get what the whole issue was. I think they were using stem cells from embryos. I mean, really? And in this, they use that as well. And what the fuck is the, so they use the embryonic stem cells. They are not babies. They are not nothing. They are donated, and they could take somebody who possibly is paralyzed and give them a life. I mean, that's a huge thing. The reason I was saying about are talking about this can be used for negative things. Not necessarily this per se, but all of this technology in general, where I also read an article where they're trying to transplant a head, and I think they did one in China. And that's where a lot of the things that doctors are doing. Think about when they get to a point where it's easy to transplant a head or body, whatever, a body to a head to a body, and that they're able to, or even, you know, like you'd see in movies or something, that they're able to switch brains or something, and the ramifications of that. That's the type of stuff that can get scary, because if you have somebody, whatever, that's I really don't want to use government, but let's just use the president as an example, or a senator, and somehow somebody, you know, invaded their body or switched brains or something like that. And I know we're talking, well, actually we're not. That's the whole thing. Like I was going to say, we're talking, you know, way out there, but we're really not. I mean, a lot of this technology is here. So you always have a positive and negative side to technology, and there's no way to stop it. It's going to happen. So you have to do what you can to, I guess, minimize the negative uses of that technology. But looking at, I think, what they've been able to do with stem cells, I don't know that I see any downsides that I'm aware of. But what do I know? I don't know a lot about stem cells and how they replace the cells and all that. It's because I know it's something where if somebody's paralyzed, it's not sending signals to the brain or from the brain. So there's something where they replace those cells or something so they can move their whatever parts they can't move, like their legs or arms or whatnot. But once that gets to a point where it's just a routine thing, I mean, that is going to change so much. Where somebody gets in a car accident and they're paralyzed, they go to, you know, they bring them into the hospital, they have an operation, and they're, you know, I'm sure would be some recover time, but they're fine after, you know, whatever, a couple weeks, and they're able to walk, and they have a life instead of being confined to a wheelchair forever. So the things that they're able to do and that they're developing are very positive things. But at the same time, when you have government essentially at the top of this thing, kind of controlling or having access to all these kinds of technologies, that's when you worry about it, because who knows what they're going to do with it. And I sincerely believe that even something like stem cells, I'm sure there's negative things that they could do with them as well. But it would be great to see just a routine operation of somebody, you know, that's paralyzed and gets out of a car, you know, has a car accident, is brought to the hospital, and they're never really paralyzed, because by the time they would have been, you know, they've had an operation, they replaced their stem cells, and, you know, in a month or a couple weeks or whatever the recover time, you know, they're walking around and they never even go through that. Or blind people, edited. But either way, no matter how you feel about it, it went from, okay, racism to banning guns and banning self-defense laws, because it was totally hijacked by the government operatives or Democratic Party operatives, whatever you want to call them, or whoever was involved. I mean, I don't know the specifics of how they do this, but I do know, I've talked to people about this that protested for almost professionally in a way, and how they train the protesters and tell them, oh, you do this and do that, and how they take over these protests and these movements. And it's really fucked up. No one really talks about it. That's why nothing really gets, well, there's a lot of reasons why nothing really gets done, but it's another reason why you're not going to solve things, in my opinion, through the system. And I don't believe in the system anyway, so, why would I use the system to solve things? But even if you did, to have a lot of change. But the first two things I'm going to talk about actually are some mild changes. One of them has nothing to do, though, I think, with protesting or anything like that. It's just, but one of them actually does. So I want to get to that first. And this actually had happened 4 or 5 months ago, and I didn't even know that Diet Pepsi removed aspartame from their beverage. I was thinking of, what am I going to say? Diet Pepsi removed aspartame from Diet Pepsi. PepsiCo removed aspartame from Diet Pepsi, I guess. So there's a lot of people talking about aspartame and how bad it was. And I remember in the 80s, I was a little kid, but I remember, causing cancer in rats, but supposedly it didn't cause cancer in humans. But I don't know that it makes it any better. So I had found that out, and I was like, I just found that out, I think, a couple of days ago, and I had bought a 12-pack of Diet Pepsi. Not that I'm going to continue to drink Diet Pepsi. I'm pretty much trying to get rid of Pepsi altogether, at least on a regular basis, but I just wanted to try it out. So it doesn't have aspartame, but it does have other stuff. So the aspartame was things Equal and NutraSweet, which are also available where you can just buy it as sugar, or not as sugar because it's not really sugar, but as sugar substitute, and people use it in coffee and tea and shit like that as well. So that's the one that has aspartame, and which is really bad for you. But they replaced it with another substance that, or another, I guess, a bunch of substances. They replaced it with the main thing they replaced that with was Splenda, but supposedly Splenda is better for you. But this is according to InfoWars, but that it can alter insulin responses and blood sugar levels. So now I don't know where they're getting that information from. I think they do cite that somewhere, but they also there's a number of things, I guess. It's chlorinated sugar, from what I understand, and I had read that in another article as well. So I read a couple articles on this, but in the other article, it didn't say anything about what it says here about reducing good gut bacteria, reducing the effectiveness of meds like cancer and heart disease medication. and releases toxins. So I don't know how much better it is, but it is definitely something. I look at it as positive because people were speaking out against aspartame and saying how bad it was. And finally, I don't know after how many years, people were speaking out about it, but Pepsi did respond by taking it out of Diet Pepsi. So I guess there is no... Originally, there was still Diet Pepsi with the old ingredients in it, because what I had read is some of the people didn't like the taste. I don't know. It fucking tastes the same to me. So I just wanted to try it out. And it always tastes like shit, Diet anything to me. And I was for a while drinking Diet Coke, not for that long, or Diet Pepsi, whatever they had at work that was free. And I stopped because it was worse than the Pepsi with the sugar in it. And they actually do make Pepsi with real sugar now too, and especially the Mexican Pepsis, but not just those. You can buy Pepsis with real sugar. Really, you should stay away from it altogether, to be honest. And I love Pepsi. I've drank way too much of it and gained weight because of it, actually. So now, and that happened to me before, Monsanto was producing and what was getting people sick or whatever. So basically, Obama signed that, but he, is so adamant about going after guns. And that's where it shows to me, and that's just one small reason or one small example of it's all about an agenda. Politicians are going to use whatever they can to get what they want. And it's not even, I think, really their agenda. I don't know if he even personally gives a fuck. Sorry, I kind of burped at the end there. But if he even personally gives a fuck, really, because he's not going to get shot, most likely. I mean, he has a Secret Service and all that. I mean, it would be pretty hard. So most likely, he's fine. His kids have security. His wife has security. So it's very unlikely that they're going to get hurt in any way. So what the fuck does he care? Does he really care about all these kids and the crying that he did? And it's not just him. It's the presidents before him. It will be the presidents after him. It's all the legislators. So I don't even mean to just pick on one specific politician, because 99% of them are the same. You may find, one or two in there, maybe if you're lucky, that are actually real or trying to do something. But even a lot of those get corrupted too. Once they get to a certain level, the power goes to their head. And that's the whole problem with having people have power over you. And I talk about this all the time. You cannot have that. You cannot have people that have power over you like that. It just doesn't work. So I was kind of happy when I saw this. When I look at the Splenda and it seeming to not be all that great neither. It's still, from what I read in other articles as well, is it's better. It might still be pretty bad, but it's better, and it shows they're trying to do something now. How are they trying to do? Why are they trying to do something? Well, that might just be because of the bottom line and the financial aspect of it, but it doesn't matter. It shows that people actually caused a change, and you rarely see that anymore. And if you do see that, it's a small change. That's why to me, it's not worth it. It's not worth going through. I mean, this is a little different because it doesn't involve government. So this, I would maybe look at a little differently than I would look at things involving government, because this is just Pepsi saying, okay, we're listening to the people, and we're going to change this and take this aspartame out of Pepsi. But you see a small change because of things that people have done, but it is a change that has nothing to do with the government. So you can't say, well, look, people can change things government-wise. I think maybe you got a better chance of changing things through ways like this, where maybe you can change what a company does, but changing what the government does, I think, is a lot harder than even a big corporation like Pepsi. So, and again, I think the main reason was because of their bottom line, but that really doesn't matter, because people, showed them, hey, then we're not going to buy it then, and we want this change, and they had made that change. So one of the other stories I want to talk about, and this really has nothing to do with anybody causing a change or anything like that, but I thought it was something that was important, and I also wanted to talk about it because I see a negative side to it, like everything else, that this could be used, the technology in the future, who knows how it could be used. And it's also because I read another article that's not related to this one, but I'll mention why the other article is kind of scary. But because of stem cell research, with which douchebags like President Bush banned, that was one good thing, I guess, that Obama did, is like they have any right to stop this research. Now, this all happened in England, but they're essentially, I don't know if I'd say curing MS, but they talk about a woman who had just had a baby. She was in a wheelchair. MS is a degenerate disease where you just keep getting worse. And a woman who was in a wheelchair, and I don't know enough about stem cells, but I guess they put in new stem cells, and within days she was able to walk, from going from a wheelchair to walking. And that's a huge thing. And I had always thought about, the people that get paralyzed from, say, the neck down and cannot walk anymore, or their life is, if I was paralyzed from the neck down, what's the point of being alive, in my opinion? Now, I know there's
Do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it.
Nothing is impossible!
You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there.
No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get the paperwork, we enforce it. But at the end of the day, each and every member should go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer, the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is January 19th, 2016, and we are coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and you can listen on Spreaker.com and NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com live. But you can also listen to the archives on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud immediately after the show. You should be able to find them on Facebook as well, especially if you're one of my friends on Facebook. But I also try to share the show. Sometimes I'll forget, but share the show on the other Facebook pages that I have, Nonpartisan Liberty for All being one of them, NPLFA Radio Network, and the Government Police are all pages that I have on Facebook. So if you haven't liked those, please go and like those pages. We promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, as well as exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. So today, we have a few different things to talk about. Of course, our main topic that we're going to talk about is political correctness and free speech, and how political correctness is shutting down free speech to an extent. And I think that's the main goal of political correctness anyway, is so many things. And you probably wouldn't imagine how many, and it's not like I know neither, but I'd probably be surprised how many, and I think there's a lot, that most political rallies or protests that get any attention. Now, there's ones, because there's ones that I've went to of people that I know where, you know, there was like 10 people there that they got together. But I'm talking about ones that get attention in government media and ones that you hear about in the government media and ones that are pretty big. They have some kind of backing there. It's just, you cannot just get together with your friends and get it that big. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe you can get it to a certain point, but it's going to get hijacked once it gets big enough. And that's just unfortunately how it is, that a political party or a political operative is going to hijack your movement and try to take it over and put it in the direction that they want. And I've seen that happen, or I was going to say firsthand, but I haven't seen it firsthand, but I've heard firsthand accounts of people that were involved in certain movements and they were hijacked. And that's what happens if it gets big enough, because the government doesn't want it going certain ways. They want to be able to control it, and they want to be able to use it to their advantage. And that was the whole thing with Black Lives Matter. I guess that's still going on, even though it's not at its height where it was being talked about more. But with any of these movements that are going on, whether it's race related or not, and I only bring that up because I just mentioned Black Lives Matter, it could be anything. And they usually get hijacked because what happens is then the government can use it to their advantage, and they can guide it to their advantage. If you look at a perfect example was the Trayvon Martin case, and I know people have their own opinions about that, but it went from being a case of so-called racism. All the facts were distorted because you had a Hispanic man being called white, you had phone calls being cut up, or where I was just drinking way too much Pepsi and gained weight, and then I just stopped drinking Pepsi, and then, or not totally stopped, but drank like once a week or twice a week if I would get fast food or something like that, or just drink it on the weekends. And then I just lost weight and went back to my normal weight like pretty quickly. So it can definitely cause you to gain weight, but that's not the worst part of it. It's everything that's in it. I mean, there were the preservatives in it and the acid. I mean, it can fuck up your teeth really bad, and there's so many things in soda that are bad, and I basically grew up on it. I mean, I would drink it like crazy when I was a kid, which is bad. And I don't necessarily think, because I believe in the whole peaceful parenting and letting kids do what they want or whatever, I don't necessarily think that I don't blame my parents for that. I mean, I did it when I was, over 18 as well. It was just what I drank. Well, probably when I was over 18, I drank less of it and got more into alcohol. But I did drink a lot of it when I was a kid as well, and it's not good for you in, I think, under any circumstances. But this may be more of a reason or a reaction to sales, because sales have gone down. So Pepsi is showing that, hey, people are complaining about this. We're not sure what. I think they still say that it's fine. It's okay for you. That they're still sticking to that, and they probably have to from a legal standpoint, or people might sue them for the years of Diet Pepsi that did have aspartame in it. But at least it's something. Now, I'm not looking at this as some big win on the side of freedom or something, and this doesn't even really relate to, I guess it does relate to freedom in the sense of a company responding to what people want, because that's really how it should work. So if people, not having the government come in and telling them they can't use it, but they did it on their own because they felt that sales were being affected, and maybe more people would drink Diet Pepsi if they took out the aspartame. And that might be the case. I mean, it happened in August, and I like I said, I just found out about it in the past couple days. But we've seen a couple things similar to this, like Subway. There was a report about some rubber shit that they put in their bread, and they had responded and took it out. Now, who knows what they replaced that with neither. I mean, the food, this is what is so fucked up to me, is because you have the government in general, but especially the president, you have a bunch of senators, you have all these legislators out there that are they go after things that the percentage of people that are killed each year by them are not even close to things like cancer or heart disease and things like that. So they don't care. And I don't think, based on my views, that they should be going after anything, because I don't believe in government. But if you're going to go after something, if you look at heart disease and cancer, I mean, that's like 1 million people a year right there that die from that. Obama had come out, and I thought it was more, and I think it is more. I think he was wrong, but he had said 8,000 homicides from guns per year. And I know at 1 year, and I might have miscalculated because of the suicides, but I thought it was 18,000. Either way, it's still nowhere near the combination of heart disease and cancer. So if you're going to go after shit, you know, you're going to spend your time on guns when you could be going after all of these food manufacturers and these corporations. And then Obama signing the bill for the Monsanto bill, which basically made them immune from prosecution. I think really what it did, not immune from prosecution, but I think from what I understood, it said, and this is a couple years ago, that if somebody has gotten sick from their food, that, or a number of people, they can't stop them from producing it. They have to go through a whole big, they can't, the court can't issue like an injunction that says you can no longer sell this, whatever it might be. That's kind of the way I understood it, but it protected them from losses, essentially, until I guess they could prove somehow a direct correlation between what the cause of whatever was happening to people was a direct link between whatever